Consultants are among the laziest people in the world. Yep, you heard that right. It is really because consultants are great at figuring out the easiest and most efficient way to solve a really complex problem. And this is how they can do it, and maybe you can do it too. Hello, this is Angie. Welcome back to my channel. As all of you probably know, consultant is one of probably the most hardworking professionals in the world just because of the long hours. I mean, I remember back in my days at McKinsey, I would start working from 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, have a dinner break from, let's say, 6 to 7, and then have my second shift from 7 to after midnight. So it was definitely a lot of work. Check out my other videos where I talked about the consulting lifestyle in a bit more detail. Is that consultants are probably also the laziest professionals in the world because they're so good at figuring out the easiest, the most efficient way to solve really complex problems within a short period of time. And these skills still benefits me to this day. This is what I call strategic laziness. I'll share how the consultants do it and how you can apply in your daily work as well. Tip number 1, outsource or delegate. I really do believe that one of the core operating principles for all consulting companies is that if a task is not utilizing your core capability, then it's best to outsource or delegate it to someone else. And consulting companies in general, it's just a giant outsourcing center. It's just people don't think about it like that. So what is that like in a daily life for a consultant? Well, it could be as small as booking your flights for your next project or booking hotels for your business trips. We have dedicated teams that's literally a phone call away that would literally be able to arrange the various booking tasks that you need to do, or in the cases where you have to change your itinerary. Instead of having to wait on the phone for hours and hours to speak to an agent, the dedicated travel team is there to help you in those needs. And we outsource some of our daily tasks. Some of them are actually pretty core to a consultant's job. So back at McKinsey, we have a dedicated team that would help take care of all of the PowerPoint formatting tasks. I used to think them as like the little fairies that would work at night. You literally just have to sketch out what the slide would look like in a piece of paper, sometimes a napkin, whatever, and then you just have to send it to them. And when you wake up in the morning, you will see those beautifully formatted slides in your inbox. How amazing is that? And to be honest, this is actually really great because, again, a consultant's key value proposition to the client is not the ability to format some pretty PowerPoint. I mean, although I do that myself as well, but it's more about the structure of how to solve the problem, about connecting all the dots together, piece together all the information to come at the right recommendation. So if you're able to outsource these tasks, such as formatting PowerPoint, and instead get better sleep so you can work with clients better the next day, why not? It's such a better investment of your time. Similarly, we also have a team that you can, in a way, outsource some of the Excel analysis to. What I mean by that is there'll be times where when you are working on Excel model and you're not familiar with maybe some of the functions or how to build the right macro. Again, we have a dedicated team that you can call up. They'll be able to remote control your computer, show you exactly what to do. This, again, a very similar operating principle. In this case, a consultant value proposition is figuring out the approach, right? How do I approach this model? What are the key pieces of information that I will need instead of being a master at Excel? So when you're a consultant, when you run into Excel questions, whatnot, instead of having to spend hours Googling what exactly is the right function to use, again, you could call up the team, outsource or delegate those responsibilities. It is extremely efficient and really, really useful. So we talked about sort of the daily smaller tasks, but if we take really a step back, consulting company is also about outsourcing expertise. I mean, this is pretty much, if I were to think about it, their whole business model. In one of my previous videos, our consultant scams, I mentioned that consulting companies, they hire a lot of young out of university, very smart people that doesn't really have a lot of industry expertise. Obviously, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. These young people, myself included, our core strength is not the industry expertise. So we outsource the industry experience, the expertise to our in-house experts, calling them up to fill out those key pieces of information for our client, to talk about what the best industry practices are, what are the key trends they have to know about. However, from a in-house expert perspective, because there are so few of them and so many clients, it is unrealistic for us to really have a dedicated expert for each client. And then a lot of times those industry experts' core value proposition or core strength isn't about the sort of the McKinsey way of solving problems, of talking to the clients. So for the daily interactions with clients and really figuring out what the problems we're trying to solve, piecing out all the information, those are the tasks that are better suited for the consultants. So those are the tasks that are delegated or outsourced to the individual consulting team that is on the ground with the client 24/7. Outsourcing and delegation are really great techniques to use. I mean, you already heard me talking about how it saved me tons of time back when I was a consultant, and now consulting companies were able to build a very successful businesses serving clients very efficiently. It is also great to use in our daily or personal lives. It is really about being able to free yourself from doing the things that you may not want to do or may not be the best use of your time. And instead, by outsourcing that and paying a bit of price on that task, it will allow you to actually focus better on your key strength or the things that you really want to focus on. In my own experience, it could be as little as outsourcing your house cleaning work. I love our house cleaning lady. She is amazing. She does a really thorough job. I'm, on the other hand, just does not have the patience to do, so that's something that I'm more than willing to outsource. I also outsource my video editing. Again, here, when I'm thinking about making a video, my greatest strength is more around organizing my thoughts, share my learnings, trying to figure out, what are the valuable topics that I should bring up to talk to you guys about, but less really around, manipulating the videos itself. And plus, I know that I'm not a very good video editor. So I outsource this to my amazing video editor that does an amazing job that would help me produce those videos more efficiently so I can upload more regularly to share with all of you guys. Yeah, and then nowadays there are so many great technologies as well that you can probably outsource a little bit of your work. ChatGPT is a really good example. I recently started using it to give me a little prompt for my videos. Again, my strength there is to expand that idea and then really organize the content into something that's more digestible. If you're interested in doing it, there are tons of great websites that are out there that can help you figure out who you can outsource to, that can help out with this whole process. I'm gonna link a few in my channel below, so feel free to check it out if you're interested. Tip number 2, automate. Everyone in their life at some point probably have all experienced this, where you have to do something that is very manual, very boring, very uninteresting. But however, it's a little bit inconvenient to outsource or delegate to other people. Yep, I had to do that too when I was a consultant, running models, trying out different inputs and seeing the outputs and stuff like that. I don't really know, in the early days when I was being stupid lazy, I would always try to go for the easy option, which is just to build the calculation once, hard code some numbers in there, trying to really do the calculation very quickly. It may seem to be the easy and the fastest way to do things at that moment, but it's really, really stupid, because very shortly I realized it is not very automated, which means that whenever I have to change an input and then to get the expected output, I then have to change each individual number manually, which is really, really stupid. What I thought was the smart move, which was to avoid investing the initial couple of hours to really build an automated model, was actually the reason why, the whole project and the whole analysis took hours and hours and hours longer and full of errors. So from that experience, I learned the very hard way, which was, even though the initial model or some sort of macro would take longer to build, if I had to do this analysis over and over again, then it's always a smart idea to invest the time to actually build an automated solution. So life is a lot easier and simpler afterwards. So the golden rule that you should learn from this is, if you are doing something manually, repeatedly, over multiple times, try to find a way to see if you can automate it. If you're doing analysis, try to see if you can build a sustainable model or macro where you can just press the button and then the results will be spit out. There's also tons of no coding, no modeling required automation tools that are out there that can really help you streamline a lot of the daily processes. For example, Zapier is a really great example that I use where you're able to really automate the workflow, where you're able to link multiple apps together and really automate the workflow. Things like Notions and Slack, all of them are really great examples. There are automations available to use as long as you're willing to really invest the time in figuring out what are the manual tasks they're trying to avoid and what are the right solutions for you to use. I hope I will figure out a way where I can get you guys to automatically press that like and subscribe button after watching my video. Tip number 3, 80-20. 80-20 is such a wildly used consulting jargon where even when I hear it and talk about it today, it still gives me a little bit of cringe and reminds me of the grind that I had to go through back in my consulting days. But 80-20, really great tip to learn. So what exactly is 80-20? 80-20 means 80% of the answer usually require 20% of the time. 80% of the results probably only comes from 20% of the action. The idea there is by doing less, you are actually able to get more.
What?
You will probably a lot of times hear when a consultant tell you to be more 80-20. What that means typically is twofold. One is they want you to be more aware of knowing, where to focus, how to use your time more efficiently. For example, when you are going through a very challenging, complex problems, there are probably like a bunch of hypotheses that you need to test out. But you don't need to go through each one of it individually and very thoroughly in order to solve the problem. What typically we do is apply the 80-20 rule. Spend 20% of the time to do the initial analysis, rule out 80% of these hypotheses, and then you'll be able to really focus your time and energy to tackle the most important, maybe 2 or 3 issues that is causing the majority of the problem. So the other fold is to know when to stop. This is extremely important, especially when you are working in a time crunching situation. Know exactly when is enough to stop and maybe when to resume at a later stage is extremely helpful. If you have already figured out 80% of the answer, then spending additional time will just mean diminishing return. So is this really the best use of your time right now? Or should you instead focus your energy, tackle the 80% of the problems and maybe come back later? Honestly, this to me is one of the biggest mindset shift that I have to go through because back in school, we're always trained, you really have to get to the bottom of this before you can stop. But real life situations in a work environment are way more complex than that. You typically have to juggle multiple things, solving really complex issues. So knowing when to stop and when to start, it's such a useful skill to learn. So this is it for today based on the 80-20 rule. I already spent 20% of the time giving you the 80% of the learning that I got from the McKinsey days of how to be a strategic lazy person. If you like this video, you should also check out my other video where I talked about how to talk like a consultant in a very structured way. Until next time, bye!